Hey there! If you're not entirely sure about who I am, then my name is Thor. I'm from Denmark. I'm an explorer who has a project called Once Upon a Saga. I am attempting to visit every single country in the world in one single unbroken journey, complete without flying, and I have been away from home for 4 years and 8 months now. I visited 147 countries, and this video is just to explain the top 10 countries I've spent the most amount of time within. And some of the answers to why I was in those countries for as long as I was might just surprise you a little bit. So here it comes, the top 10 countries. Well, truth be told, I reached Cyprus on exactly 4 years of continuously traveling on a $20 per day budget. And I was fed up with everything. I was really tired, so I just needed to get through the backlog of emails. I needed to rest my body, rest my mind. I needed to get some sleep, something decent to eat. And I spent about a month in Cyprus just finding myself again and convincing myself to continue the project. So that's a tough one to start with, but that was number 10. Well, first of all, I got engaged in Kenya on top of Mount Kenya, so my fiancée, she came to visit me and that took up some of my time there. But actually, I also spent a lot of time trying to get my Ethiopian visa, so it was very bureaucratic, and I eventually got it and continued the saga. That was number 9. Jordan's a wonderful country. My fiancée actually came to visit me in Jordan, so that also took some of the time. But mainly I was just trying to get the visa for Saudi Arabia, and I failed. I didn't get it, and eventually continued traveling through Iraq. That was number 8. I actually came to Tanzania twice. The first time I arrived to Tanzania, I was there to see if I could find any ships that could take me out into the Indian Ocean. I needed to visit the island nations, the first one being Comoros and the second one being Madagascar and so on. And it took a bit of time to find the first vessel to take me away. The second time when I came back to Tanzania, I was there to get my visa for Burundi. And Burundi had just changed their procedures. It used to be really easy to get the visa, but now all decisions were being made inside the country, so I had to wait about a month in order to get that visa. But I eventually got it and continued, and that was number 7. I love Iceland. But that wasn't the real reason why I was in Iceland for a long time. I was in Iceland twice. The first time I arrived, I was looking to see if I could find a vessel that could bring me across the Atlantic up to Greenland. And it turns out that is a really difficult task. Then later on, I came back to Iceland and I was on the outlook for a vessel to bring me across the Atlantic to Canada. And that was a little bit easier. So that's Iceland, and that was number 6. The Republic of the Congo, not to be confused with the much larger DRC, Democratic Republic of Congo, but I was in fact trying to get my visa for DRC. And I visited the Republic of Congo twice. The first time I tried to get the visa for DRC, that didn't work out. I decided to go up to a couple of other countries and then come back and try again. And the second time, when I really had to cross the Congo Delta, I spent an awful amount of time on bureaucracy again, and eventually got the visa and crossed the Congo Delta from one Congo into the next. Cameroon's yet another wonderful country. I really enjoyed my time there, although the reason why I spent so much time there is because it was a logistical hub. I came from Nigeria into Cameroon, then I went up to Chad, came back to Cameroon, then I went into Central African Republic, came back to Cameroon, and then I was on my way into Gabon. So that means I was already in Cameroon 3 times, and that's one of the reasons why I spent a lot of time. Then after visiting Gabon, I eventually got out to the island nation of Sao Tome, and then I couldn't get back to Gabon from there, but I could come back to Cameroon, which was then my 4th visit into Cameroon. And at that point, I wanted to go back to Gabon because I had left my bag inside Gabon, but they wouldn't let me across the border for untold reasons. So I spent a lot of time trying to cross that border, a lot of time with bureaucracy and stamps and visas and permissions and who knows what. And eventually I crossed the border, got back into Gabon, retrieved my bag and continued the journey. And that's why that is number 4. Number 3 is Greenland. The reason why I spent a lot of time in Greenland is because it turns out it's not only difficult to get to Greenland, it's also very, very, very difficult to get away without flying. One of the project rules for the saga is I cannot return home until I reach the last country in the world. And my home happens to be Denmark, and all the vessels, they go between Greenland and Denmark, Greenland being a part of the Danish kingdom. However, I do count Greenland as a country, and it was a country which I spent about 2 months in because I couldn't get away. And number 2 is the Sudan. Now, people, they do distinguish between South Sudan and North Sudan today, but the North Sudan is really just Sudan, and that's the one I spent a lot of time within. The main reason why I spent so much time inside Sudan is because it's almost impossible to get a visa for Eritrea, and certainly if you want to travel into Eritrea over land, which I had to do. I eventually got that visa after trying for a really, really long time. It was hard and a lot of bureaucracy again. And then something happened. There was some disagreements between Egypt and Sudan, which meant that I suddenly might not have been able to cross the land border and getting my visa to Egypt on the border, so I had to apply for my visa in Sudan, but this was now difficult. So more bureaucracy, amazing with bureaucracy, and that is the reason why that became country number 2 on this list. And here it is, the number 1 country which I have spent the absolute most amount of time within the saga has been Lebanon, with 102 days. And the main reason was that the only way I could get safely inside Syria was by visiting from Lebanon, and Syria wasn't too keen on giving me a tourism visa to begin with. So I waited and I waited and I waited, and I tried to put some pressure on the situation and a lot of bureaucracy again. And eventually we found a way to get me the visa and get me across the border inside Syria. I spent a few days, and then I had to come back to Lebanon again because the border was closed between Syria and Jordan. So I needed to come back to Lebanon and find a ship that could bring me to Egypt so I could cross Egypt and then get to Jordan via the Bay of Aqaba. So 102 days in Lebanon. Thank you very much for that. That was my top 10 list, and now you know why I spent so much time in those 10 countries.